for coming on the show. So
Thank you very much, Dr. Endago, and congrats
thank you very much.
on your on your feat
Yeah,
today. You
sure.
have been able to bag a degree
Mm-hmm.
in mass comm
Mass
or
communication.
English.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I should have expected you to have taken English because that seems to be your area, and you have taught me English.
Oh,
You
no, no,
know.
no, no, no. We're not going down that path. Sure.
So
A lot of people were
congratulations.
thinking that I was studying international relations at university, including
Oh,
our DCA here, our
oh
chief
yes,
host,
yes,
Shamsuddin
yes.
Mustafa
Yeah.
Dare. Was
Okay.
at some point in time telling me that, Omar, you should have studied international
International,
relations.
yeah, international relations. It's a very good area. It's a very interesting area for people, particularly those that are interested in current affairs and so on. Since I was in the secondary school,
Mm.
that is my area,
Mm.
and I used to read the Newsweek magazine at
Wow.
that time.
Music from
International
oh,
Newsweek International.
from the UK or the US?
No, it's a U.S.
Okay,
magazine.
oh,
It's a U.S.
that's very cool.
Newsweek and Time.
Okay, yeah.
They are U.S. magazines.
Time
Yes,
magazine, yeah.
yes. And I used to read most of the foreign affairs columns in the
Oh.
newspapers and
Mm.
so on. So I was more or less a foreign affairs man,
Oh, yes, that's
of course. And please let me,
okay.
if I have to say lecturer,
Okay.
but of course, correctly, you have said that I'm the HOD,
Mm.
that is Head Relations.
Mm.
But to be a commentator on
Yeah.
foreign affairs is the best tag for me.
Okay. So instead of addressing you
Yes.
as this and that academically,
Well,
I should just say call you a geopolitics analyst. Foreign affairs
well,
commentator.
don't allow Henry Kissinger to send for me because
So it's
he
going
has a
to
full school on
yeah.
geopolitics
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he's interested in that.
But he's dead, so he cannot threaten you from beyond the grave.
Well, he has disciples.
Those who are staunch believers in his cause.
In his cause. So,
I had an
and
interview with someone who's an ardent critic
oh,
of
wow.
Henry Kissinger.
Yes,
He
too,
called
I
him
am
a
one.
monster. He
Oh,
called him as someone who has the blood of innocent civilians in his hand. Cambodia is an example. Vietnam is an example. I don't know
well, no,
I don't know
no.
your thoughts about it.
No, you see, you have to be fair to most statesmen in the
Okay.
world, particularly foreign ministers.
Okay.
Foreign ministers, yes, some of them could be powerful enough to influence the foreign policy of their country, particularly if they have a weak president.
Like Colin Powell? Am I reminding you of something?
Well, Colin Powell,
Mhm.
and but the one that has the most important impact is George Marshall.
Oh, who is he?
Oh, George Marshall is the wartime foreign secretary or secretary of state of the United States of America.
Wow. And
Yes.
Reagan?
No.
What time?
No, 1940s. In the
Okay.
1940s.
During the World War?
During the Second World War.
Wow.
Yes.
That's why you call him a wartime
Yes, the wartime.
Secretary of State.
Yes, George Marshall.
So he's hawkish?
No. He's a great statesman. He looked at the world as his constituency, in fact.
Okay.
Yes, particularly Europe. Of course, his European background and even European accent.
Oh.
Even among Americans, he was one of the few who still retained his British or European accent.
European accent.
Yes, the Anglo-Saxon.
Wow.
And so he really did much for Europe after the war, and he was the one who produced what you call the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, the massive foreign aid that the United States of America dished to Europe. At that time, about $30 billion by 1947,
Yes.
the Marshall Plan. And that was the plan that rebuilt Europe. Yes.
After the Second World War?
Yes, after
Wow.
the devastation of the Second World War. So he planned, and the president of the United States at that time, Roosevelt, agreed, and the Congress agreed. So they injected that kind of fund to rebuild Europe. And that is how Europe came to be.
Without the American fund,
no,
Europe could not have been as it is right now.
Yes, it could have been very difficult, particularly Germany. So yes, it could have been very, very difficult for Europe
tell
to
me,
rebuild.
Is Roosevelt a Jew, a Jewish American, or this U.S. Secretary of State at that time? Because there's a conclusion I'm arriving at. Do they have a
That's
kind of Jewish connection or Jewish descent or something like that?
no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because
There are
ever
more of
since,
the Irish,
mm,
connection, the
okay.
British, and so on.
But ever
Uh,
since the Second World War,
mm,
Germany has retained a kind of an apologist stance
mhm.
towards the Israelis,
Yes, yes, and
and
that is
the
what the Israelis are using even at this time as a psychological,
mm,
weapon
yeah.
on Europeans and even on the Americans. That's why they are getting their support.
Mm,
Particularly, they use, I'm sorry to say, the
mm,
Holocaust
mm.
to to a great disadvantage to the whole world or to the Palestinians and the rest of them, because what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust was a devastating thing. It is something that you wouldn't like. It's something that you should be condemned and you would not like to happen.
As they say, 6 million
But
people
yes,
were
yeah,
exterminated.
yes, indeed. But then it shouldn't have been used till date as a political weapon.
Mm,
Yes, to coax
mm,
European governments and America
mm,
to give undue support
mm,
to Israel to do what it has been doing.
mm. So it's
And
a,
uh, and that is what Israel has been doing, to the extent that the whole thing now is in its favor. Europe is always in its favor. Europe is always apologetic when it
mm,
comes to Jews.
okay.
Yes, even the German foreign
Mm.
minister in the last summit of the General
Yeah,
Assembly,
the United
I watched.
Nations General
Yes,
Assembly. Yeah.
yes, I watched her talking. She was apologetic,
Okay.
even though she wanted to show to the world that yes, there is great sympathy for the Palestinians and some of the things that are happening are not good, but she really did not condemn it to the extent that she wouldn't hurt Israel or
Mm,
the feelings. And that is unfair. It's not the kind of statesman, international
yeah.
statesman that you would like.
Okay.
Because if that is the way the world looked at situations
Mm.
way back in 1945 after the Second World War, then we wouldn't even have the United Nations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because the United Nations came in order to bring about international security.
Mm-hmm.
And this international security is based on the pretext that there should be no aggression.
Mm,
And aggression should not be allowed, should be punished, in
mm,
fact, should not be condoned. And any aggressive nation should be tamed.
mm,
But Israel they don't
yeah.
even raise a finger,
Mm.
and
They
that
don't
is
describe Israel as an aggressor,
they don't.
but
In
they
fact, they tend to even explain
mm, that it's always the
the
victim.
action.
It's
Yes,
always
yeah,
been the
yeah.
victim.
It is always the victim, and I don't think you can guarantee international security on that kind of pretext. You don't do that. You cannot do that. In fact, that is why I believe that the international order
Mm,
is changing. We are at a
okay.
threshold
Mm,
of a new international order. We wouldn't know what would happen now. Like Trump is
yeah.
given
An ultimatum. Yeah,
ultimatum.
sure.
You don't give ultimatum even in diplomacy, although he's not
He's not a
giving,
diplomat.
he's not engaging any
Yeah.
diplomatic
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
But you are giving people ultimatum
Mm,
by so time, date and time.
mm,
If they don't do what you are asking them to do, then they are going to suffer some consequences. I don't think you run the world that way. Of course, Donald Trump, even in American politics,
mm.
is something different.
Yeah. He is
Yeah,
entirely
he's,
different.
he's completely different, and I think he's going to overturn American politics to a great extent.
And when you
Look
say
at
overturn, what does that mean? Do you mean
well,
he's going
for
to
the worse.
destroy it? Okay, for
Yes,
the worse, not for
yes,
the
for the
better.
worse. After all, uh, at the end of his first term,
Mm.
look at what he engineered.
The storming
The
of the
storming,
Capitol,
yes, of the Capitol
the
Hill,
the
and
yeah,
it
Capitol
was
Hill, the U.S.
mhm,
Congress.
yes, the U.S. Congress, and he was even telling them to come out and take back their country.
Mm.
These are hate speeches. You are
Okay.
engineering people to
Mm.
violence,
Mm.
and they came and did violence.
Mm.
They committed violence, and he's getting away with it to an extent, or to a great extent. He's now
So
president
is
again.
that if that is the case, then then critics should criticize the American system for allowing him to sort of get away with it. Yeah.
Well, the Republican system is that kind of system whereby any citizen could, had the right to present himself,
Okay.
and the citizens have the right to elect.
Mm.
Of course, a system like that also favors a certain class,
Yeah.
if you like, of elite.
Mhm.
Of course, it is like the Western liberal democracy.
Mm.
It favors
Mm.
the upper class.
Mhm.
So, and that is why somebody like Trump could come back to power. Of
Mm.
course, the whites have are about 75% of the American
Sure.
population,
Mm.
and therefore anybody could whip up such sentiments and he could get their votes. And since the majority, anybody who has a majority of the votes will always win, and
Mm.
so that's how
No,
he came to power.
I'm not talking about the American electoral system. I'm
Yes.
talking about the whole country as an institution.
Mm-hmm.
They claim to be um, champion
Mm-hmm.
of human rights,
Oh yes.
rule of
Mm-hmm.
law,
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But then
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not an expert
Mm.
in the American law
Yes. Yes.
to 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 say whether or not
Mm.
that what happened to Donald Trump coming
Mm.
back to
Back
the
to power.
office was sort of illegal. But then I had an interview with someone, a
Mm.
very staunch supporter of Kamala Harris,
Mm-hmm.
and she was lamenting
Mm.
how flawed the
Mm.
American judiciary or
Mm.
judicial system
Mm.
has become,
Mm.
allowing him to stand for
Yes.
the election
Mm.
in the first
Mm.
place,
Oh
while
yes.
they knew that if he stood
Yes. Yes.
for the election, if
He
he
could.
ran, he would win.
No, 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 no. I think we should be fair to the judicial system. Even in the United States of America, there was no guarantee he could win. There was no guarantee he was going to
But
win.
there were 34 counts, felony counts on him.
Yes. Aha.
But still,
But the issue in law is that it is better to set a criminal free than
then to punish the
to
innocent.
punish the innocent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That leverage, and that
And
is
it's
why he
because
came.
he's white.
Well, yes, I can accept that in the sense that
Because
it's
that
a
woman who told me this
tendency.
is black, and she said that.
Well, it is a tendency. There's always this tendency. He belongs to the majority,
Mm.
and the majority could always get its way, even if it's the wrong type of way. They would always get their way, and that is always the system that is part of the criticism against democracy. Like
Mhm.
Winston Churchill is saying,
Yeah,
he said, yes, he
the great
agreed.
British Prime
Yes,
Minister.
the great British Prime Minister. He agreed that democracy is not the best way to choose leaders.
Mhm.
But he had searched and searched and searched, and he couldn't get any better way.
Okay. Oh, that's too. How should I describe this?
Well,
Too
it is
sentimental? Too
no,
too biased?
no, it's an
Yeah.
innuendo. I think he was
Mhm.
trying to really
Yeah.
show the greatness of democracy. But
Mm.
in reality, well, no system is perfect.
Mhm.
But the democratic system, I think, is more popular, and you can
More
go for the
popular
popular. Yeah,
and not.
it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
the best way.
Yeah.
Of course, the Quran is very clear.
Yeah.
Into the akthara man fil ardi yudilluka an sabilillah.
Mm.
So it's not all the majority is not always right.
Yeah, definitely.
But you go with the majority. Alayka bil jama'a. What do you do now?
I understand, but then let's look at the world and
Yeah, yeah.
see the countries, examples of countries that are doing very well,
Yes,
and
yes,
check out their systems. For example,
yes, yes.
I believe places in the Scandinavia are doing very well.
Yes.
Places like Finland, places like
They are all
Denmark.
democracies.
Okay.
They are all Western liberal democracies.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All of them are Western liberal democracies. Even the wind of democracy that had blown into Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, and the rest of them, what we are doing, we are just simply copying also. We are adopting the Western liberal democracy, but we have not perfected it like they have.
That's the question.
Yes.
Ours
But
is flawed.
yes. So like this great political scientist, how I can remember his name, he's saying we just have to continue to work despite its flaws until we perfect it. They too didn't start
like
perfectly.
this. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
they had their own way. If I remember, there are many prime ministers or many speakers of the House of Commons that were executed on the orders of the King of England.
Wow.
But today, now, the House of Commons is the most powerful institution. It could even overrule verdicts.
You're talking the British Parliament.
It's the British Parliament in the Westminster.
In Westminster,
Yes,
definitely.
Yes. So what I'm trying, all these are Western liberal democracies. They are of different brand. The British parliamentary system, the French semi-presidential system, and the American presidential system. But they are all Western liberal democracies. They have the same principles, the same goals. It's just that the structure differs, and each one had adopted the structure based on its historical evolution. And
so history means a lot in the process of developing the system.
Of course, yes, the system. Of
So
course, even in Nigeria, that's
in our
why.
case,
Yes, yes.
why has it gone wrong? In our case, in Nigeria,
In our
for
case,
example.
it's the implementation. It's the actually the loyalty to the system, the sincerity of the people leading it, and even the ordinary people who are operating to service the system. Yes, we are not. We are not. We didn't start like the Europeans started. Britain started as a country of the British nation, the British people. So also the German nation. So also the French. So also the Finnish people, the Swedes, and the Americans. We came up as a result of colonial fusion, if you like. And we are having to learn to live together. So we have to manufacture a system that would bring us together. And then certainly before it bears fruits, before it becomes perfect, before it becomes concrete, we are definitely going to suffer so many crises. So when the British came, they bequeathed to us the parliamentary system of government with all the, if you like, advantages and the disadvantages. But it collapsed. The military came. It is something that is an aberration. But the military, despite that, they came and they shut down the system. And the same military agreed to return power to the politicians and to create another structure. And this time around, they thought that it is the American presidential system somehow is more akin to our own African system of a powerful leader, one powerful leader.
Instead of the parliamentary system
Instead of the parliamentary
that we had started.
Yes, that we had started. So, and they operated it
in Second Republic?
In the Second Republic, starting from
1979.
Yes, 1979 to 1983. Then it was that same military also felt that the politicians were not operating the system. There was too much corruption, so they,
it's always been like that.
It's always been like that.
The military take over.
The military would take over, and so that is why, in fact,
and mostly
if we
it's
have
because
to
of corruption.
digress, I should advise Nigerians to be patient. Because if you continue to want somebody to come in to remove the politicians as they are now, so he will correct the system, he will never correct the system. Yes.
Because when those military guys took over in those years, they did not perfect.
The military has never been trained to manufacture a political system. Their professional training is to defend the borders of the country.
But but some people were saying that the Nigeria of those days during the military administration or the military regime was far better than the Nigeria we're living in.
It's just currently. Nostalgia. It's what you call nostalgia. It's simply, they are just thinking of the good old days. But it's not because of the military, it's because of the economy. The economy was good at that time.
And the leaders were treating the economy in a
No. I'm sorry to say. You see, we all we operate based on the material condition of each epoch.
Meaning?
That is, at every stage, socio-economic stage in our life, the citizens as well as the leaders behave according to the dictates of the material condition of that.
Okay.
So when the British were in power, of course, they operated the system so well in order to protect the economic interest of Britain. So they wouldn't allow corruption, the Africans, to corrupt their way and therefore eat the treasury, eat up the treasury.
Yeah.
When they returned power to the Africans, now it is left for the Africans to decide whether to keep that system going as the British left it, with all the checks and balances, with all the system of accountability and transparency, or not. And they could not. Well, some would say because of the African tradition, the what do you call, the patronage system. The patronage system. It made it difficult for the Africans to rule. In fact, let me tell you, I read, I can't remember, it is an authoritative source.
Okay.
When the wind of democracy was blowing, just before the 60s or in the 60s, and Harold Macmillan, the Prime Minister of Britain, was asking James Robertson, who was the last colonial governor of Nigeria, with this movement for independence, that you think, do we grant them independence? Then James Robertson, yes, you should grant them. Then Macmillan asked him, but are they ready? He said, no, they are not ready. In fact, the most intelligent among them still required 20 more years of training.
Oh my God.
To be able to administer a developing country in Africa. He said, then why then are you quickly asking us to grant them? He said, if I did not, then I wouldn't have place in my prison.
Okay. Okay.
The Americans would not allow Britain to. Yes. So they were the Zigs and the rest of them. So they had to give them. So well, I'm sorry, I'm opening a point of debate to the public, thinking that, but it is true, the Africans at the time
were not
really ready to lead,
to rule themselves.
Yes, to rule,
to rule themselves.
In fact, I'm sorry to say that was
what, that's problematic.
Yes, it's problematic.
Sure.
In fact, Ian Smith.
And who is the?
Oh, Ian Smith was the colonial governor, or was the leader of Zimbabwe, Rhodesia.
Okay.
Rhodesia, which is current day in Zimbabwe. Yes, it was
the country of Robert Mugabe.
Yes, it was a white minority government, like South Africa. Yes. They were running it like apartheid, saying that Africans cannot recruit themselves. Okay. But getting it from Ian Smith, he was trying to be
he's one-sided.
Yes,
to insult the Africans.
He was being racist.
Yeah, be racist.
Yes, but
and the
African could say it with the gusto, with courage, and he really
to rule ourselves.
Yes, we are not
and that's
ready.
why we are misruling ourselves.
Yes,
the problem is where a lot of people are associating it to colonial period, colonial era, and the influence of white on our leaders.
It has always been. It has always been the scapegoat.
By saying scapegoat means you don't believe it.
Oh, well, right. Some people are just trying to. Yes, it is just an excuse, a defense mechanism to. That is, every time you say it's colonial, it's colonial. It's like here now, you say, military rule. Military rule has always made us the weapon, like the military leaders. Yes, like, I mean, being very dictatorial.
Yeah.
Yes, I can agree to that. Yeah. But every problem on colonialism then you are just being escapist.
Okay. You're trying to escape from the problem?
Yes, you are not trying to admit the fact that you are incapable.
Okay.
We have just said that the politicians are not ruling, not doing this one. Most of them were the politicians that you see. They are engineers, they are doctors.
Some have a PhD.
In fact, they are well trained in their own profession. So if it is that kind of specialization, Nigeria now has enough. But why is the country being run down?
So now you are bluntly saying that there is no foreign influence on our leaders in our.
There are two things.
Okay.
Understand me. Colonial legacy or colonial, I mean the root of our problem to colonialism is escapist.
Okay.
But yes, foreign influence could be there now. The best governed country to foreign influence because foreign countries also have interests to protect elsewhere in the world. So they could infiltrate Nigeria. That if they allowed Nigeria to thrive, to become very strong, powerful, to the detriment of their own imperial line, if you like. So there could be different thing.
Okay.
But you are saying that our country, the leaders are not ruling well. Our country is not developing colonial past. That is what I disagree.
Okay. This is absurd, in your opinion, looking at the you have just provided.
Yes.
But then a lot of people what a lot of people said in, especially people of this generation, is that could it be true that those guys are influencing our leaders and they are the ones who to be
and who not?
Could that be true?
No, it's too simplistic.
Okay.
That kind of theory or thesis is a bit simplistic. It's not like that.
Is not justifiable?
No, you see, it is possible for me to come to your place of work and want to get some people and to try to brainwash them to think the way I want and so on. So when they take over the organization, then they would do my policies. That I think is human. It's part of human tradition everywhere. So we have to live with that. We too, why can't we do that to others? This is
but
something.
We don't do that to others.
Well, it's because we are incapable. We are not even capable of making our country great. So how are we even capable of making others or influencing others? This is the issue.
I understand.
This is the issue. Leadership, particularly governing a developing country, a developing democracy, a developing economy, we are now talking about politics of development, which is a branch of political science. Now, it's very difficult. But you need to get people that are very patriotic.
Okay.
You need patriotic leaders, leaders who lead by example, and who the people themselves would feel deep in themselves, in their mind, that yes, they are being honest with us. That is the kind of leaders that you want.
Okay.
But the irony is that people don't see it. That now, in that situation, then the leaders have to continue to cut corners. They have to cut corners in order to keep on leading the country and to whip up so many sentiments to fight this, fight that, in order either to remain relevant or to remain afloat on leadership, or to, well, if they don't succeed, then they go down and then to undermine the person in power later. For them to come back to power. So this is the crisis that we are having in not just Nigeria, mind you.
Okay.
In most developing countries, particularly Africa. Because I'm sure India has passed that stage.
No, India is now aiming to be among the
China
first-class
has passed
countries.
that stage.
Sure.
If you read what you call critical junctures in the development of China,
Okay.
you would see how leadership
Mm.
in developing a country.
Okay.
By 1996, China was in the doldrums.
Meaning?
China was groping in the dark, was going down.
Okay.
The communist regime
Yeah.
itself was facing serious crisis.
Setbacks. Mm.
And the people could have revolted
Mm.
like they did in Soviet Union.
Yeah. Mm.
But the decisive leadership of Deng Xiaoping,
Uh-huh.
who decided to be the man behind the throne, he was not visible. He was not taking part in, but he was behind, who became leader of the Communist Party, who are the kind of leader that China should now come up. If you like, they were all his boys.
Mm.
And there were such people who, as from 1996, if you like,
Yeah.
turned China around
Wow.
to date.
Mm.
And most of them,
Yeah.
they are not politicians per se.
Okay.
They were engineers.
Wow.
Yes.
Those people.
Yes.
But they had
Including the
conviction.
current
Xi
Xi
Jinping.
Jinping.
Yeah.
They are engineers.
Okay.
They
That's
are not
fantastic.
politicians. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is unbelievable.
Yes.
So because they had conviction, they
yes,
still do.
they had to. They felt that they had to build their country. They had to save China. They had to keep China to remain afloat and to rub shoulders with the powerful countries.
And we should do this.
China
right?
is like that now. Today, since I think 2005 or 2015,
Yes.
the United States of America declared openly, came out of that it was now in a trade war with China.
Yeah, definitely. Since Donald Trump came in.
And that is a great success for a country like China.
Okay. So do you think, a lot of people have been alluding to the fact that if Nigeria wants to develop,
Yes.
it needs to divorce itself from the West and leans itself to the East.
No. You see, that is an old theory. Old theory. It rang. It was very, very popular, particularly among scholars in the 70s and the 80s, particularly 60s, 70s. Yes, it is called the underdevelopment theory. Yes, people like Walter Rudney, people like Franz, was it just Franz Fanon? No, I cannot remember Franz Fanon. Franz Fanon, and even Claude Ake here in Nigeria, people like Bala Usman, and in fact the socialist ideologues, those who believe in the social, they believe that African countries, Samir Amin of Egypt also had that. African countries had to delink. They call it delink.
Yeah,
they had to delink from the Western capitalist economies. So long as Nigeria or African countries remain attached to the umbilical cord of the West, they would never develop. But then they can no longer continue with the argument after the collapse of socialism in Eastern Europe and in almost all the countries of the world.
In early 90s.
Yes, in the early 90s, yes, as from 1989, when the Berlin Wall crumbled, then 1990, Soviet and the Eastern European countries, the most developed of the East of the countries of socialism in the world, they collapsed one by one. And they adopted Western liberal democracy. So now you cannot continue with the argument. And that's why they said the modernizationists, led by Cardoso in Brazil, they now came up and say, well, our theory is now the one for a country to modernize at the steps it has to take, and so called a country to develop using the modernization theory. Because it was possible, Latin American countries, because the modernization theory